At the start of every sermon up till now, I've been giving you a kind of mini overview of what religious science and our new thought faith is all about, as well as my own personal beliefs therein. However, because the entire talk today is based on our most fundamental spiritual truth, I won't do that. We're just going to jump right in. And I'm going to start by reading a really powerful passage. Then I'm going to read another powerful passage that says the same thing in a different way. Then I'm going to tell you a story that says the same thing in a completely different way. 3 different things, all saying the same fundamental, critically important, life-transforming spiritual truth. In fact, they're all teaching us the single most important spiritual truth for us to get. Because when we get this principle, when we really get it and embody it and live from it, it is the ultimate leap off the fence onto the side of yes. It's the definitive line in the sand that lets us walk through our lives fearlessly. The first reading is from Ernest Holmes, and what I'm about to read, Holmes really, really means. You know he means it because he put the key word in all capitalized letters. Make no mistake, people, this is the big stuff. There is one mind by which we think, one spirit by which we live, one body of which we are a part, and one light that lights everyone's pathway. One spirit, one mind, and one substance. One God in whom we all live. And one law which we all use. One, all caps for emphasis, period. One, repeated, and all caps, and an exclamation point. One, all caps, 2 exclamation points for extra emphasis. The infinite must be one. You guessed it. All in caps. For there could not be 2 infinite beings. Whatever change takes place must take place within this one. That's from page 68 of the Science of Mind. And he makes this point over and over and over, like only Ernest Holmes can make it, lest we forget that there is nothing other than the one. And it is in the one that we are to put our complete faith. That's a key word there, folks. Complete. Not 70%, not 80%, but 100% faith in it. Because until we have 100% faith in it, we're sitting on a fence. We need to either be in or out and stop messing with, you'll get this, Mr. In-Between from the old Burl Ives song. I knew he'd get it when I wrote it. So do we believe it or not? Because when we do, 100%, life takes on a whole new meaning. Now, I know it's easy to sit here and say yes. I've done it, and then gone home and not felt quite as connected. So I'd have to keep trying. Well, let's explore it a bit deeper now. We're going to go back a couple thousand years to the Tao Te Ching, because it says the same thing as Holmes and then expands it to what it means to us. The Tao Te Ching is the entire Taoist philosophy of life in 81 verses. It took Holmes over 600 pages to say what he wanted to say just in the Science of Mind textbook. We're not counting all of the rest of his library. He's wordy, and they're great words, but holy cow, Lao Tzu had it condensed. Lao Tzu is the haiku of religious texts, right? And what he says in verse 32, this world is nothing but the glory of the Tao expressed through different names and forms. One who sees the things of this world as being real and self-existent has lost sight of the truth. To him, every word becomes a trap and everything becomes a prison. But one who knows the truth that underlines all things lives in this world without danger. To him, every word reflects the universe, and every moment brings enlightenment. So the individual who knows the truth that underlines all things lives in the world without danger. And what is the truth that underlines all things? There's only one, in capital letters with multiple exclamation points. There is only the glory of the Tao, nothing but the glory of God expressed through different names and different forms. One spirit, one mind, one substance, one life, one God. And it makes all the difference in the world to understand and to have 100% faith in this truth that underlies everything. Because if we understand that there's only one power, not conceptually, but fully understand that there really is only one power in operation, we can do something really radical. And this can get big. This is going to get big, I'm telling you. Last night, I sat there doing my final edits, and I said to my husband, I might get some stuff for this, because I'm about to hit them with something big. So if you have stuff to throw at me, aim for him, because I'm not receiving that. Now, this radical thing we can do is we can walk through life, and no matter what befalls us, we understand who the giver is. And when we understand who the giver is, we can stay open when it comes. And that's a reality that's vastly different from how we were taught growing up and the present reality of most people. Those folks would tell us otherwise. They'd tell us that we live in a dark and dangerous world, and around every corner harm can befall us, and we hear a million stories, right? Here's one of them. This story was told by August Gold at an affiliated New Thought Network conference a few years ago. It's the story of the woman who lived in downtown New York City on the Lower East Side. One night, just an ordinary night, she walked into the vestibule of her apartment to get her mail. She put her key in the lock and flipped open the box. And all of a sudden, a big, burly stranger crashed through the doors, grabbed her, and hurled her on the ground into a corner. We read stories like this, or hear them every time we pay attention to the news, don't we? Literally every time. Something bad, something totally unexpected and unwanted comes crashing through the door. And we get to hear about all the damage and casualty that ensued. Nobody wants something like this to happen to them, and we certainly don't wish it on anyone. So there she was. She's crouching on the ground in fear, and who wouldn't be? There isn't anyone in this room, myself included, who wouldn't instantly be gripped by fear. Am I right? We sit in rooms like this, and we say we believe there's only one. But how would we respond in these moments? And it is in the moment that we get to decide what one really means, because we never know when a moment like this will happen. Now, it may not happen exactly like this. We may not get shoved in a corner by a big, scary stranger, but life can come at us suddenly without warning, can it? and we can definitely get shoved. As August Gold was telling this story, she said, and when things come at us like this, we have to know who's come calling, whose hand is pushing us, whose hand is knocking on the door. If we don't know, we will never, ever have a peace of mind that will allow us to open the door with any kind of certainty, knowing that what is knocking on our door has our name on it, knows our name by heart, and is calling specifically for us. Whose hands pushed her down? That's a radical question to ask, isn't it? A lot of people would take offense to a question like that. But if there is only one power and one presence, and if God is, and I am, and if everything is nothing, as the Tao says, but the glory of the Tao, if everything we see, if everything that exists is this one power and presence that we already are, then the very hand that seems to be pushing us down is our very own hand. It's our hand that's doing the pushing. That big burly hand is ours. Now, who wants to think that somebody would bring such a thing upon themselves? None of us. But here's where the teachings can transform us. We look with our human eyes, and we see her on the ground, or we see ourselves after being let go from a job, or in the doctor's office getting a notice about an illness, dealing with something we cannot believe that we have to deal with. And with our limited perspective, if we don't understand what one really means, then we look with our human eyes and we say, oh my God, look what just happened to me. Isn't this awful? And everyone would agree with you, yes, it's awful. But if there really is one power, and there is one presence, and you are it, and it is you, if everything is nothing but the glory of the Tao called by different names, if all life is a movement toward our enlightenment, and what is our enlightenment other than a realization of our wholeness, our perfection, our completeness, our greatness, then every single thing in our lives, without exception, is a movement toward our wholeness, our greatness, our growth. If we don't know that, if we don't know that all of life moves us toward our growth, we will think that life is happening to us, and really not understand the truth that underlies everything, and is that life is happening for us. It is happening for our own development. We are being grown and cultivated and nourished and sustained with every living thing without exception. Not the exception of being pushed down by this man in the foyer, or foyer, people are saying now. The word is foyer, folks, so whenever somebody says foyer, my eye twitches. It's not cute. It's like an involuntary shudder on half my face. I feel better now, thank you. I just had to get that out. So it's not the exception of getting pushed down in the foyer, not the exception of the 22 or, and he'll know if I'm right, maybe 23 and counting different surgeries I've experienced in the last 19 years. It's not an exception of my dad's heart attack and all the physical and mental side effects that have come along after that. Nothing is left out. The idea is that all life is a movement toward our own wholeness. Even if they're taking parts out, my wholeness is of the greater good. Solve that puzzle, my friends. everything that comes to us, everything that happens to us, everything bar none, isn't happening to us. It is happening for us. So, there she is. She's crouching in her vestibule in the midst of every person's worst nightmare. And then something hits her. This is why we study. This is why we read. This is why we go to classes. This is why we do it. For this moment, when we're crouching on the ground in the middle of an experience we don't yet understand, but we know it is for us. And she said to herself, I have spent my whole life crouching. Everything that's ever happened to me, I've taken this pose. In every relationship I've had, in every job I've had, with family, with friends, I'm always defending myself and crouching in fear. Today's the last time I crouch. That's it. And she stood up, literally, in her truth. She stood up based on the truth that there is one power, there is one presence, there is just one. Here is where all those caps come in handy. Just one. She knew this. And in these moments, you have to know it. You can't know it 80% and hope, because you won't stand up. And if you do, you won't really mean it. You can't know it 90% because you won't stand up. And you won't really, really mean it. The only way you can stand up to this fear is to know what it means 100%. The only way we can do it is to pick a side. You got to get off the fence and pick a side. And she did. Having picked one, she stood up for the first time ever in her life, in a situation that was probably the craziest situation for her to stand up in, because that's what most people would tell you. Stay down and throw your purse or kick your phone to him and hope he runs away. She stood up. And she was so certain of what this meant for her that she turned right to this Goliath-sized fear and did something preposterously counterintuitive. She went charging toward him, and he couldn't believe that was happening, so he turned around and took off out the door. She went running down the street after him. She was absolutely crazy because she was living in a world without danger. The instant she understood that her own fingerprints and the fingerprints of Spirit itself were on this situation, and something wasn't happening to her. Something was happening for her. When Charles Fillmore says, this path is about following God all the way home, and we think, oh, what a pretty concept. That's so sweet. That's all so pretty. Let's just follow God all the way home. No, this is what it means. Following God all the way home means standing up in the middle of a real life metaphor. She takes that experience, and it became a stepping stone for her. It made her more courageous than she'd ever been. This made her a woman she had never known herself to be. And she takes this single bit of applied knowledge and transforms the rest of her life. So what does enlightenment mean? It means every single thing that happens to us, we understand as the one power and presence in answer to our prayer. To grow us into the people we were born to be, who we long to be, who we pray to be, who we desire to be, who we hope to be, and who we dare to be. And maybe we're a little afraid to be. You got to love this path. It's very bold. And it's so incredibly transformative when you enter into these teachings and understand what the great teachers of our life and the lives before us have come to tell us. That all of life is a movement toward our own wholeness, our own greatness, and our own perfection. And that, my friends, is what one really means. So let's take some time within. Let's really focus on that. Now, we've been talking these last couple of months, and we've said that it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel the fear. It's good to know that you're afraid. You need to take that knowledge of those fears, and today we're going to choose that those fears will not define our action. That yes, those fears exist, but those fears are not directions. We don't have to follow them. Because we know the bigger truth, which is that those fears are letting us know the biggest lessons we need. When you feel fear, when we're feeling anxious and frightened and wondering all the what ifs, that's that flashing light saying, hey, this is an opportunity to really grow. So we're going to have those fears and we're going to acknowledge them, and we are going to consciously choose to remember that there is one, and that those fears are telling us exactly where we need to go to practice that oneness. And our lives will be changed from this moment forward. Amen.